Welcome back to the Altar of Madness. This will be my continuing series on the Babylon 5 TV show. Last time I covered season 3. If you did not see that one, you may be a bit lost if you watch this video. So you might want to check that one out first. That's probably my favorite season. Season 4 comes pretty close. Just to recap, okay, the end of season 3, we have John Sheridan, the captain of Babylon 5, falling seamlessly to his death into this big, huge abyss, pit of darkness on Zahadum. And you have Garibaldi, who has disappeared, presumably taken into a shadow vessel. While he was in a Star Fury trying to defend Babylon 5. And so we're left with the cliffhanger, and we pick up right off with season 4, the first episode called The Hour of the Wolf. And this is a very eccentric episode with three female characters, Delin, Ivanova, and Lita. And they basically go on a kind of a mission to find Sheridan, or at least go to Zahadum and use Lita to see if she can sense if he's there. At this point, they have not heard back from Sheridan, and the shadows have disappeared, and it's been very, very quiet. So as soon as they get there, there's a Lord of the Rings kind of homage there. It's kind of like the Eye of Sauron. It's the eye of the shadow that senses them when they arrive, and then they get out of there. But they obviously can't sense that Sheridan is even alive, that he's dead or whatnot. So there's a defense system still intact at Zahadum. Also, like on Centauri Prime, later on in the season, Morden appears, and he's still alive. He wasn't as close to the blast radius as Anna Sheridan, and his flesh is all peeling off, and he's like, he's really creepy and dark, and he's amazing. I'm glad he survived that, at least. This season basically wraps a lot of things up, and almost too quickly, in my opinion. I think it should have, but they didn't think they were going to get a 5th season. They always had the 5-season arc plan, so this seemed kind of rushed. Sheridan falls into the abyss. He jumps, and when we first see him, he's on the ground in this cavern type place. Of course, it's all kind of in his head, and he's talking to this alien figure called Lorien. It's the first one, and they have a conversation, a very philosophical conversation about Sheridan having something to live for, and if he has something to die for. And tick, tock, tick. One moment you're alive, tock, then you're dead. It's really interesting, and then you see that in one episode, Sheridan is basically levitating. He got caught. He didn't fall and to his death. During the fall, he was engulfed in this being of light, which is Lorien. Lorien is that light figure that later takes the alien form. So Sheridan returns. He returns in a very pivotal moment, like a really epic scene, and this is like, okay, so he returns from the abyss, like Gandalf returning, Gandalf the Grey, Gandalf the White. Okay, so he returns, and he's changed a bit from before. Only he's got a precise plan, kind of. He's more focused. Lorien has some influence on him. Lorien, the first one, and kind of explains to everyone, about the Vorlons and the Shadows, because at this point, it's always been like, okay, Shadows are evil, Vorlons good. Let's side with the Vorlons, okay? So, you find out throughout this season, And in the previous season, when you do see the new vorlon that had arrived, Olkesh, the purple one, the one that goes by Kosh still, you know, even Lita Alexander, who had known the other Kosh, realizes that this Kosh is different, and the vorlons are up to something. They have a plan, and that plan is to use a planet killer to destroy entire worlds, this huge craft, and they have this huge fleet they're amassing, and they think that the way to end the war is to destroy every planet that has been touched by shadow technology or shadow influence at all, including Centauri Prime. So, well, shadows, and the shadows have a planet killer too. Oh, so they're doing the same stuff. They're destroying entire worlds as well, and so it's like, what is going on? And so they're not even fighting each other. They're fighting other worlds that have been influenced by the other side. So it's interesting that they don't actually have any conflict against each other. Garibaldi returns. I believe it's in like the second, third episode. He returns, and he is not quite the same either. He seems the same up until this point. He's kind of normal. Throughout the season, he changes. He makes a big shift, which we'll explain in a second. So the first thing that happens really when Sheridan returns is to take out the vorlon, because you know the vorlons, they're not going to stop, you know, using their planet killers, and they're not. So you got to take out the vorlon. You got to kill the vorlon. You got to get him out of Babylon 5. The whole idea behind taking out the vorlon, killing a vorlon, how are they going to do this? I mentioned in another episode that Kosh has a piece of him inside of Sheridan. So whenever Sheridan goes and with Lorianne and Delenn, and they're all there, they kind of set this little trap to entrap the evil vorlon. Lorianne is able to do that, and like sends, you know, kind of the signal to Kosh comes out. You see the true form of Kosh, which is this being of light, but not an angel. More of like this weird supernatural, like, you know, it's hard to explain, this huge like light entity, you know. And then the other vorlon comes out, and they attack each other, and they like go through the station and like explode outside the station, and like it's crazy. So they got rid of that vorlon, but see, Sheridan died. That's right. So Lorianne breathes life into him, like gives him life again. Lorianne is able to do that, like touches him, and the consequence of this is that, you know, we'll see when Sheridan fell and was caught. Apparently he died then, and like he only has so many years to live. Like at this point, you know, like maybe like 5 years of life left due to the sacrifice that he made there. You've got different things going on in this season. You're going to wrap up the Shadow War in episode 6. Okay, that is early for a 22 episode season. They wrap up the Shadow War, and how they do this is they find more first ones. Lorianne is able to go find with Ivanova and find more first ones, and they're really cool looking ships that you've never. I mean, they've made just for that one really epic shot battle. And what happens is they basically trick the vorlons and the shadows to attack each other, send fake intel, you know, and like, you know, stage this event, and in order to do so, they had to sacrifice the life of a ranger, and that ranger being Bryan Cranston, the guy from Breaking Bad, Walter White, which was an interesting tidbit there. And he sacrifices his life in order to make it seem like, you know, that there's this fake intel that basically like allows for the vorlons and the shadows to meet up unexpectedly, and then bam, they're there with the White Stars. When Sheridan, you know, when he returns, he actually has all the races come together, even the Narn and the Centauri and all of them into an alliance to fight this huge battle in the 6th episode, Into the Fire. When they do that, they face the vorlons in the shadows, and they're posed with the philosophical questions. Who are you? What do you want? You know, and finally, you know, Delenn speaks with the shadows while on the White Star, like telepathically kind of, and then Sheridan is speaking to the vorlons. They have this huge philosophical conversation, and they're like, "Just get the hell out of our galaxy, you know. Let us be on our own. You know, your time has come and gone. You've served us well, but we don't need you anymore. You know, you need to go." And they go beyond the rim. We don't know where that is. They basically leave this plane of existence. They are gone. They are gone. So that is the end of the Shadow War in the 6th episode. Before this happens, in that episode, a vorlon planet killer is headed towards Centauri Prime, and Londo, Malari, and Veer are there, and they're like, "What the heck are we gonna do?" They have to destroy everything that they think has been touched by the shadows. When Jakar goes looking for Garibaldi in the early part of the season, he gets captured, right? So he gets captured, taken to Centauri Prime. He's tortured. He gets his eye cut out. He gets whipped, beat, almost killed. Jakar is you know, used as kind of a way of killing Emperor Cartagia. Londo says to Cartagia, the crazy madman emperor, like, "Hey, we need to go to Narn, and we need, with the home planet of Narn, we need to kill Jakar there, and for his crimes against us and whatever." And so Londo is gonna like inject this poison into him and kill Cartagia, and he like drops it, and he's like, "What the heck?" And then Veer, the innocent Veer, ends up doing it, you know, inadvertently, which is really hilarious in a way, kind of messed up. But so they do that, and then they're like, okay, well, there's one other thing we have to do. Morden's here, and also, you know, Londo had a vision in a previous season, a dream of these shadow vessels on Centauri Prime, and that actually does happen in this season. They have to get those shadow vessels out of the way. So like, Londo calls in Morden. And Morden's like all fine now. His skin's all normal, and he's like, oh, and a really great scene, really epic scene. The island of Selene, which is where the shadow vessels were located. They had a few people that occupied the residence there, and most of the people evacuated, but some stayed as to not, you know, give anything away. And so there are nuclear bombs, and Morden's like, yeah, so what are you gonna do? Blow up the island? Londo's like, now that you mention it, bam, boom, explosion. And Morden, like, he says, you know, feels the power of draining from him, and he's like, oh no, he's like, you know, even if we lose the war, Centauri Prime will pay the price for what you did here today. And Londo's not done with him yet, and he cuts off his head and sticks it on a pike, and Veer gets what he wants. He gets his wish from the earlier season. So that was really awesome. Morden is dead. Very fitting way of getting rid of him. But the Vorlon planet killer is still on its way. So Veer's like, okay, what are we gonna do? And then Londo's like, well, I've been touched by the shadows. They've influenced me. Veer, you have to kill me, and then let them know that you've done it, you know, and show them that you killed me. And I'm like, what? Londo, you're crazy. Well, then they look, and then the Vorlon ship passes by because it's headed to the big conflict instead. It's headed to the final battle instead. The Regent, one of the members of the Centauri government, ends up being temporarily emperor, whatnot. The Regent, he wakes up and he has a keeper on him. So the Drak, the Shadow Servants, are already on Centauri Prime. Right after the big battle, they go to Zadum. Bester wants to go there to look for technology or whatnot. He may have some ulterior motives to going there, but when he goes there, there's a self-destruct system, and it explodes. So no one can get any of his technology, and then you see these ships leave in the distance. You can't really tell what they are, and then they're the Drock, the Shadow Servants. There are all these other races that serve the Shadows, and they go to Centauri Prime. You later realize and find out that the reason why Zod exploded wasn't a self-defense mechanism at all. It was Lita. Lita was there. Lita wanted them to pay. Lita had a vengeance against the Shadows, wanted them to pay, wanted them to suffer. They're gone, but she wanted to destroy the planet. Okay, she's powerful. She is powerful. They have another episode that is another one of those like not a regular type of episode, but it's filmed in a newsreel type style again, which they had done I think in season 2, and it's made as a propaganda piece again to make Babylon 5 even more so as a propaganda piece. They show both sides. They show like what is shown, and they show how it's taken out of context. So it's a really cool episode, and that is called Delusion of Truth, and that's one of my favorite episodes because you see really how they twist and lies. They piece together footage and stuff. It's really cool episode. Highly recommend that one. And to make Babylon 5 look really bad, because there's going to be a civil war. It's going down. Lines of Communication, another good episode. It involves him in Bari, and one main focus was that you see a member race of the Drock, the Shadow Servants, and you see the vessels. You see they look more like a vorlon vessels, organic vessels. They don't look spider-like, black, dark. They're more green and more like vorlon ships. But you do see the Drock, which is a really cool part of that episode, and it involves the Minbari. For some reason, after I believe the Great Council is disbanded for a time, and so they make an alliance with the Drock, or someone does in the Minbari. It's weird. It's really cool to see them though. So that's a really good episode. Sheridan. He gets kidnapped, kind of. He gets tricked. He gets tricked by Garibaldi. He makes his big shift. Garibaldi has been altered. He has been changed. And this is his big shift. Just as Talia Winters had a super agent, how she was, not the same. Garibaldi has something similar, a telepathic implant signal. It's an Asimov sci-fi element kind of that Bester does to him, where Garibaldi cannot kill Bester, cannot cause harm to Bester. He is under full control though of the Psy-Corps, and part of it is involving Mars. He goes back to Mars, but the first thing he does is he tricks Sheridan and allows Clark to, he lies about his father, saying, oh, they have your father, you need to come meet me here and we'll rescue your father. And then he gets Sheridan and gives him to Clark. And there's one episode where it's like Sheridan is being interrogated. That is a really good episode, and it's really just Sheridan being interrogated the entire episode. After the incident with Garibaldi, basically, Garibaldi goes to Mars and Edgar Industries and his ex-wife, and he gets involved in this anti-Psy-Corps organization because there's a virus to kill telepaths, and there's a virus and there's a cure, and so he gains the trust by leaving Babylon 5, no longer and speaking out against Sheridan and doing all these things to gain trust, not by his own free will by any means, because he would not do this. And he even at one time hits Sheridan in the face and fights him, and it's crazy. Bester could leave him, and after Bester gets all this intel from Garibaldi, and then kills Edgar, gets the virus, gets the cure, stops this plot, uses Garibaldi as a pawn. Then he makes it to where, Garibaldi cannot cause harm to Bester, cannot do anything to Bester, cannot kill Bester, and returns his memories and everything that has happened, everything that he's done. And so Garibaldi has to prove himself to Sheridan, and he has to he goes and rescues through the Mars resistance and some of the other people. They go and they free Sheridan, and Lita Alexander has to scan his mind. She's powerful enough to do that to see that Garibaldi's telling the truth. He's not really a traitor, and so they do rescue Sheridan, and then that's when the end game happens. And when Sheridan gets back, he's like, "That's it, President Clark, Earth Alliance, going down." A lot of defectors actually join ranks with Babylon 5 and the Alliance, and all the other alien races actually help Babylon 5 out to end the Civil War against Earth. As a result, Ivanova leads a force against a elite Earth force, shadow vessels, hybrids like Shadow Tech. She ends up dying, or is near death, and pretty much is going to die. And so from season 1, that device, okay, Marcus, the Ranger Marcus, he goes to Babylon 5. He loves Ivanova. He goes and finds information about that device, uses it. He dies, saves her life. She leaves the show after this season. Is so distraught by that, she's out. So when they all come to Earth to tell Earth to stand down, Earth has defense systems and stuff. So Clark is going to do a scorched Earth event and turn the security defense against Earth and attack Earth. And they're able to stop that. Luckily, able to stop that with the the white stars, the Earth. Actually, Sheridan commands from the Agamemnon, his old ship from back in the day. They save Earth, but when they go to find President Clark, he has shot himself in the head. Also, the telepaths were used. The telepaths were on Mars, and they were used and implanted into Earth Force ships. That's how they took out a lot of those Earth Force ships, because in the Ship of Tears episode from season 3, whenever one telepath is awakened, it tries to find the machine. It mentally is looking for the shadow vessel, and so it attaches to whatever kind of ship it's and so the Earth Force ships are basically obsolete. They can't function because all these crazy implanted telepaths are trying to take over the control stations or whatever these ships. So it's pretty cool how they do that. They use that to good effect. And of course later on Bester's did you use the love of my life, did you use her as a weapon? And Sheridan's no, but I should have, but hey, fuck you. No, what you did, what he did to Garibaldi was horrible. He never gets his revenge, but in the later seasons, season 5, last season, you kind of hinted that eventually maybe he will, and I think they do cover that in the novel. After the conflict there, and the Civil War is ended, which the Civil War had been hinted at and built up actually, ever since Night Watch and all of that. So they've been building up to the Civil War, and just like they built up to the Shadow War, and all accumulated here. But so Sheridan steps down as a result for Babylon 5 as captain, and so there's going to be a new captain in the next season, in the 5th season. but he is now president of the Interstellar Alliance, a new alliance. They have disbanded the League of Non-Aligned Worlds, which was the council of different alien races on Babylon 5. The Interstellar Alliance has a ton of white stars and new ships that they start building later on, and it's a more cohesive unit. They're more unified, the Interstellar Alliance, or at least they try to be. And so even the Centauri join up, and the Narn are now free. The last episode, though, wraps up like the show, and it's a good episode, like wrapping up the entire show, because they didn't know they're gonna have another season. So the last episode, Deconstruction, Fallen Stars, it's this crazy episode that goes all through time, all these different time periods into the future. I mean, you see Babylon 5 get destroyed, which there was a prophecy, one of the Centauri prophets, like way early on, like I don't know, like season 1 I think, said that this place will end in fire. Well, it ends in fire. It's a ceremony because they don't need it anymore. It's so many years into the future. They don't need Babylon 5. What its purpose was served. So yeah, it ends in fire, but not because it's destroyed by shadows or anything like that. So so this episode, it goes and tells, you know, it goes up different time periods up until like a million years into the future, and it shows the effects of Babylon 5 and how it has affected things. And you even see an older Delenn at one point, and not a million years later when you see her, but you see her, and she's been interviewed on ISN, and they're still a propaganda unit. I mean, they're still like propagandizing, like you know, what kind of man was Sheridan? What kind of man was, you know, well, what about this Interstellar Alliance? You know, was it good? Did it matter? You know, so but a million years later, you see this guy. He's a ranger, weird looking guy with a goatee or something like that. He's got a robe on, and then he ends the episode by like basically, you know, like he's been watching like this entire episode, like he's watching this, like he has this data crystal or something like that, like data crystal, and then like he gets this data crystal, and then like all this information, and then he like goes and he transforms into this being of light, and gets into this encounter suit, and gets on this ship that looks kind of weird looking, almost like a Vorlon organic ship, and then goes to like the New Earth, which is I believe the Vorlon homeworld, because apparently they tried to go to the Vorlon homeworld after the Shadow War, and you know, as Lita has explained, somehow she knows that there's defense systems there, and so anything that arrives there is destroyed. And so no one has ever made it there and back except her. She's the only one. And she said, mankind will not be allowed, we're not ready to go there until maybe like a million years. So that's what happens kind of at the end of this episode. And so at that point they didn't know they were going to have another season. They've just wrapped up the Shadow War in the 6th episode of a 22 episode season, and then they finished it off with the Earth Civil War, which I thought was really good. That is season 4. No surrender, no retreat. So season 5 is next, and I have some mixed feelings about that, but this has been another episode of The Altar of Madness. I know there have been spoilers, lots of spoilers, of course, obviously, but you've had 20 years to watch this show, so I hope I've given a good synopsis. Until next time, I will be reviewing Season 5, the final season of Babylon 5.